In this video, Simon Sinek explains the purpose of having a goal, how it draws an impact on the individual's overall vision, and how it affects day-to-day work.
Do you remember a bunch of years ago, one of the soda companies, I think it was Coca-Cola, they put people's names on cans, and you just would go, remember just for a while, it was just a marketing thing. I mean, you could write things on cans that capture the spirit of what cheers means. I mean, you could write cheers, but you can actually write statements like, cheers because I love you, cheers because congratulations, cheers. Like, you can write those things on the cans, and you can start to do it in product. That's narrative. You're starting to tell your story through your product. Also, the way you talk about your jobs, quite frankly. You know, if I ask the average employee at ABI, if I were to sit next to them on a plane and say, what do you do? The dreaded question, right? What do you do? Oh, I'm a marketing manager at Anheuser-Busch. Okay, right? What would it mean if they were to actually say something at a higher level than that? Oh, I get to help find new ways to bring people together to celebrate each other and take care of each other. That's amazing. How do you do that? I'm actually a marketing manager at Anheuser-Busch, right? Where when narrative starts to seep into the culture, people start talking about the cause before they start talking about their jobs. You know, Marines. If you ask somebody in the army, what do you do? They'll say, oh, I work in the infantry, blah blah blah. If you ask a Marine, what do you do? They say, I'm a Marine. That's what comes first. It's the global, right? It's the membership. I think every time you show up on television and every time you give a public speech, it goes back to that story of Phil Knight. And I'm not proposing you tell Phil Knight type story, but the point is like you're going to go on Squawk Box and they're going to ask you a question, and your ability to talk about your cause, not sometimes in the literal words, but sometimes in interpretive words, and how you imagine the company coming to, and what bold means, what dreaming big means. And sharing some of those dreams. And like, we're a company that says we dream big. Let me tell you what we mean by let me tell you some of the dreams we have. And you can talk about how you're changing your incentive structures. You can talk about how you're challenging old notions of business. You can talk about how the world is changing and you're not going to follow the change, you're going to lead the change. This is all narrative, and it all is based on the same core. So to answer your question, there's no right answer, but if you listen to all of the different narratives, they all have a flavor. It's like somebody asked before, like, how am I an effective preacher? If you go watch any video I've made, and if you go read any book that I've written, you can feel that there's a theme. That theme is always there. And people are smart. People can discern themes. And so the more consistent you are in all the different ways you bring it to life, people start to understand what that theme is. Like Disney, it's always there.
The most important idea is that metrics are important and milestones are important, but the most important thing is context, and that goals should be understood to achieve the purpose of the goal. This is exemplified by the example of a young entrepreneur who was asked how long it would take her to reach $100 million in revenues. She responded by saying that hypergrowth or high-speed growth is good for the company, but that the pressure comes from the person trying to achieve their financial goals. They understand the purpose of the goals they're setting and how they're contributing to something, and talk about the place they are trying to get to and the world they imagine.
Purpose is always idealized, right? Like, as I said before, I imagine a world in which, right? I know I'm not going to get there. Like when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, like one day little black children will hold hands on the playground with little white children, right? Like all of these things, they're all strivings. And the milestones that we pass make us feel like we're making progress. And that's why metrics are really important and milestones are really important. And the most important thing is context. There's nothing wrong with quarterly numbers or annual numbers. The only question I would ask is, to what end? To what end? Like, I was talking to a young entrepreneur last night, and she's looking for investment. And one of her potential investors said, how long is it going to take you to hit $100 million revenues? And I said, don't take that person's investment. Show me one article, one, I just need one. Show me one article in HBR, one study, I don't care, that demonstrates that hypergrowth or high-speed growth is good for the company on any level. The answer is there are none. The pressure comes from that person trying to achieve their financial goals. So they put pressure on you to make your short-term goals, right? And so there's nothing wrong with goals as long as we understand the context and the purpose of that goal, right? I like to think of money like fuel, right? And a car is the company, and the purpose is the destination, right? And if money is fuel, it makes the car go. You absolutely have to have money to make the company go. There is no dreaming big if you have no fuel. You can have the most beautiful car in the world, and yet if you got no fuel, it's pointless. But we don't own a car to buy fuel, right? We don't have companies simply for the money, right? It's the destination. You want to be able to go somewhere. And the passengers are the employees, and they're excited, not about the fuel in the car. How much fuel do we have? No one gets excited by that. We get excited where we're going. We're going to Alaska. Are we near? And that's the analogy. And when there's a roadblock, if you're only driven by the metrics, then the way we think about money, the way we think about corporate goals is the same way we think about our goal is to drive 200 miles a day. Our goal is to make X amount of money, right? That's how we think about it. Well, what happens if you drive 150 miles? Is that a problem? What happens if there's a roadblock? Do you know what to do? You start freaking out and panicking because you're going to miss your numbers. Where purpose-driven companies that know their destinations in the idealized state, they take detours. And to the outside world, it looks like you're going sideways or slowly, but you know you're just going around. And that's how companies actually look. You know, it's circuitous and messy. And purpose helps us keep focused on the very far distant future so we know we're going in the right vector, even if somebody can't tell we're going in the right direction. And so people have to understand the purpose of the goals you're setting and how they're contributing to something. And start talking, like we and our P&L, I don't have the word profit on my P&L. It doesn't exist. On my P&L it says freedom. I damn well want more freedom this month than I had last month.
Fuel drives purposes, and they must make a lot of fuel to get there, even if it's expensive and takes a long time. Ultimately, it is important to understand the context and the purpose of a goal. Purpose-driven companies that know their destinations in the idealized state and take detours to keep focused on the future, even if people cannot tell if they're going in the right direction. Coca-Cola used to put people's names on cans to capture the spirit of cheers, but now companies can use narrative to tell their stories through their products and the way they talk about their jobs. Another example of this is Anheuser-Busch, where a marketing manager at ABI can help find new ways to bring people together, to celebrate each other and take care of each other. When narrative starts to seep into the culture, people start talking about the cause before they start talking about their jobs, which is what comes first. The most important idea is that the most important part of being an effective preacher is to be consistent in their message. This is exemplified by the story of Phil Knight, who was asked a question in Squawk Box and used his ability to talk about his cause in interpretive words. It is important to be consistent in all of the different ways you bring your message to life so that people can understand the theme that is always there. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. For more videos, like these and subscribe.